time in that it chose to put hands right down at the very front, and it knows that it can't do hands.
Testing 1 2. Can you guys hear me okay? 1 2 1 2.
Loud and clear.
Nice.
Loud and clear. We are live. We are
Oh.
live, lads. Do not say F or bugger. Am I allowed to say that? Are we
I don't know what you just said.
Remember that from what was it called? Bo Selecta?
Bo Selecta. Wow, you're really showing your age there.
Is this the part where we're like, I'm just waiting for a couple of people to join?
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Joanne. Oh, thank you. Oh, you look so good today. Oh, thank you so much.
So on the topic of artificial intelligence, so this has come up a couple of times on these chats, like what the implications are for companies like ourselves, for HiiKER, for the hiking industry, for the outdoors. It's not something that's really widely talked about anywhere. Like I don't really see anybody talking about what the implications of AI is on specific industries, particularly in the outdoors. I just haven't really seen anybody. I see people joke about it. I haven't seen anybody really kind of like talk about it in a like somewhat serious manner of what that actually means. And then secondly, from a pros and cons perspective, like what are some of the benefits that can come out of this? And I know Ian Breen, who is an Irish HiiKER content creator, and like he's a developer as well, big fan of HiiKER. He talked about like how he sees it in that like it's going to help to kind of make the discovery process and the preparement for hikes much easier, which I guess is what kind of some of the things that we've been talking about over the last few days in terms of like what HiiKER might do with AI and how we might use it to improve the user experience. What are your guys? Pete, you're about to say something there. What are your thoughts?
I've seen AI discussed in terms of hiking or like outdoor activity and kind of orienteering and all that, and it was in one place and it was Reddit, and
of course
it was of course just a like negative. It was what are you talking about AI? I'm not going to be staring at my laptop all the time when I'm out in the mountains. It's the complete antithesis of everything that I want exploration and outdoor navigation to be, and yada yada yada, blah blah blah. So yeah, it was pretty well shot down on that thread that I saw on Reddit. But of course, it's going to be super negative. It's Reddit, but that is the opposite of what people are using AI for in terms of these contexts and these applications. It's about like. Well, I suppose, Paul, I'll let you discuss the technicalities of what it opens the door to in terms of kind of conceptualizing information and data. And that's the strongest bit about it. It's you're no longer relying on people to show you data. You get it kind of ingested and then given to you in something a lot more kind of, I don't know.
I think like one of the things that is important to that we do clarify is that like what we're referring to here is generative AI, which is AI you can pass text or images or audio into, and then from that it will generate. And like let's be just very clear, what it does is it guesses word after word what the right next word is. It just happens to be very good at guessing. But like I always, the big thing for me is like I just kind of like to keep it simple in that how AI is generally going to benefit is it is intelligence. AI, what the second word in it is intelligence. So what does intelligence do? It helps to make inferences from different bits of data. So for example, like if you think a very, very, simple way, if an AI has got a whole set of data about a trail, and it's got other data about what the current conditions are. Well, one of the powerful things that AI can do is go, well, I know the trail is like this. I know it's got this kind of surface. I know it's at this altitude. I know it goes this high. I also know what the conditions are at that. I know how the dew point might change throughout that mountain. It knows all of these different elements there. So we can bring of those two things together and go, these are the things that I think about that. So if you think about the simple question you might have is like, is it safe to hike that trail today? The AI goes, I know all this stuff. I know all this stuff. My answer to that is this. And I suppose the rightful downside to AI at this point in time is, does it give the right answer? And even at that, you end up in the situation as with anything else. Even you ask a person the same question, it is ambiguous. For one person, it could be perfectly safe to go out and hike on that day if you have the right equipment, if you have the right experience, if you have the right knowledge, if you have the right level of fitness. And for another person, it may not be. So you inevitably end up in a situation where it is difficult to answer. But one of the important things, I think, is the better your understanding of the person and their experience and their abilities, that's going to help you better answer that question about whether it is right for that person to go and hike that trail or not. And that's ultimately where I see this being very interesting, is like just helping people to know what they can and can't do, or at the very least just help make inferences. Is this safe and a good thing to do or not a good thing to do?
Yeah, and I suppose it's only right to point out the limitations of AI as it stands at the moment. And I mean, again, generative AI as it stands at the moment, but these things are like improving at a rate of absolute knots. I'm sure the two of you guys are clued into like how vastly more intelligent these things are getting now. We're a long way away from the quote unquote general AI that people are touting, but like we gave the example there earlier on of being able to ingest like not a huge amount of data, just like some amount of data into an LLM. And if you don't know what that means, is a large language model. So like ChatGPT is a large language model. Google Gemini is a LLM as well. And being able to ingest information into that and for it to give it back to you in like formats like images, but also now video. And then one that I thought was just absolutely mind-blowing was a podcast. Like it's just absolutely blew my mind that you're able to give it some information. And like, say for instance, you're studying for an exam and you want to know, or you want to, the way that the best way for you to consume information is for someone to just talk at you and just be like, this is what's going on, for you to be a fly on the wall for a discussion. And now all of a sudden you're listening to like two like not real people talk about the subject that you're trying to learn about. So I just thought it was absolutely fascinating. And I suppose one of the other things as well, rightly point out, is that there are kind of currently implications from an energy perspective as well, because the amount of energy that it takes to power some of these prompts and for these outputs is, for one prompt, like on average, is to light a light bulb for about something like 45 seconds. I don't know what the actual number is, but it's enough power to consider, and energy consumption to consider. So that's something that I'm going to be kind of paying attention to is how is that improving? How are they either making it more efficient, or how are they reducing the amount of energy that it consumes?
Yeah. It's like, again, if you think like about the how this could be used, so like it's easy to lose context. So like, not everyone knows how to read a map. Not everyone can look at a map and go, oh, those contour lines mean that this is a mountain, and that means that this is a valley. And so I think that that's, again, one of the areas in which it can help people to learn and understand, where you could be looking at a piece of a map and just go, hey, could you help me to infer what I'm seeing right here? Am I looking at a mountain? Am I looking at like a gully, or am I looking at a valley, or what am I looking at here? So I think that really is interesting, helping where you're just in that situation, essentially passing it a picture, and it's helping to infer and translate what that is into human words. And that's really exciting, because if you think about it, like from a learning perspective, that's huge, where you can kind of look at something at any point in time, not know, and be able to get an answer to that question. And I think that's the kind of stuff that's really exciting. The other elements that I think are exciting as well are like offline models. So again, where somebody gets caught in the outdoors, they can't. And like, obviously the main thing you should always do is contact, you know, the emergency services if you're stuck in the outdoor. But in a situation where you can't, you've got no signal, you know, is there potential for an AI bot to just give the very base level kind of safety information? People will always have the questions of like, should I stay where I am? If I'm not sure if I can go back on the route where I came there, am I safer to stay here or to go backwards? Under what conditions should I do that? All that kind of stuff there, I think, again, offline, smaller generative models could be helpful in, you know, helping a person to stay safe in that kind of situation.
Well, that's definitely where I see the value in it, is where, like, obviously we can create parts of our app that are about like, this is what happens if you get in trouble. We've created blogs and we've created content about that kind of stuff in the past, but it's the context. So if I am a certain type of person at a certain level of fitness with a condition or something like that, then that's where it becomes really valuable. And that's again what we're looking at, I suppose, is how to contextualize our trail information as well, and personalize that a little bit to people's kind of skills and their experience. And that's just, you can't do that with singular pieces of content. So yeah. Has anybody seen any kind of outdoor apps or websites use AI kind of successfully in the last while?
I've seen a bunch of websites and things, but nothing to do really with the outdoors.
Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem like anybody's kind of figured it out and how to do it properly. I do know that there's some
kind of sorry, Pete.
Yeah, there's some kind of mapping companies who are bringing out kind of smart route navigation and that type of thing, but it's nothing really to do with outdoor navigation and leisure.
There's some big players obviously in our industry that you would expect at some point will dip their toe into this. They'll do something. They will have some feature or UI that will integrate AI. But yeah, I suppose that kind of leads on to like the next question, which is like the next side of this, which is what are the potential risks that are involved? Because we can't, like, you have to. This is a big moment in civilization. Like, we can't like downplay it in any way, shape, or form. This is a huge turning point, and that's why, you know, you have three guys that are running, you know, a hiking app talking about artificial intelligence. Like, I don't think there's ever really been a time, apart from when we had smartphones, when the hiking industry were like talking about something quite technical. So when we're talking about something that's big and scary like this, we have to talk and consider what the risks and implications are. Particularly when you are using these models in the physical world, when you're using them in maybe not necessarily while you're out in the wild, but also, Paul, you did mention about having offline models, but using them to help to navigate and to help to navigate these hikes and being in the outdoors and these somewhat kind of risky situations, and in some cases very risky situations. So I guess what are the mitigating things that we can do what are the mitigating things that we can do to mitigate those risks, I suppose is the question.
Like, I think it's much like before AI, where when you get, you know, advice off somebody or somebody says to do some things, you always have to have your own wits about you, just like anything. Even when you have the best map ever, when you see something in front of you that doesn't look right, you have to act with caution. The scene I always think of is there's an episode of The Office where Michael Scott is following his GPS navigation, and the GPS navigation says turn right here, and it's like about to turn into the water here, and then he's just like going towards it, and he's turning, and they're like, don't go that way, you're driving into the water, don't go that way. He's like, no, the GPS says I go that way, don't turn that way, and he drives straight into the water. And I think that is kind of like the reality, and that is honestly the risk, you know, because some people will take these things, you know, literally and they will turn into the water.
I have to pull that up. It's literally, it's one of my favorite scenes in the entire show. But yeah, I guess like that's a thing that we're seeing in the hiking community anyway. Like that's why people use apps like HiiKER in the first place. But they do that puts I suppose a good bit of responsibility still on HiiKER and like before HiiKER it would have been the mapping organizations, and before them, or not, maybe not before them, but at some point the trail organizations, the ones that are building the physical trail as well. And yeah, like where liability lies is always a bit of a weird one. Like outside of hiking, there is this example of where AI kind of went wrong from a platform or a customer service perspective, where and Sharon, my partner, she knows well about this because she was really kind of looking at ethical AI for or still is. And there's this example with Air Canada where they implemented an LLM. They had a chatbot they used and they trained it with all their data. And this customer had to cancel their flight for like personal reasons. A family member had passed away. They got on. They asked could they get a refund, and after like a couple of minutes, the chatbot eventually came back and said, "Yeah, you can absolutely. You can get a refund." So when she went to file for a refund, she was told, "No, you can't get a refund." And then basically the Air Canada tried to say that it was the AI's fault, that it was their fault, that they shouldn't have told the customer that. But the AI is I suppose, the voice of the company. So they're like, again, this is where it is at the moment. This is where it was maybe 3 months ago, and it is obviously improving. But I suppose that's one of the risks, and that's one of the things that I'd be kind of cautious of, is like how much reliance are we putting on this AI or that user to have a safe and a good experience.
I do think it is important to kind of clarify like that. Like ultimately, when you go into the outdoors, you are your own responsibility, and everyone has to take responsibility for themselves. So the liability always lies with the individual who is choosing to go out there. But at the same time, I do think from our perspective, or for any company who's considering artificial intelligence, the important element is to, I think, provide people with the correct warnings and the reality of the doubts. And I think even anybody who's giving you hints or tips about the outdoors, for example, if you're like, for example, a famous trail in Ireland that is also famously quite difficult, Cumshanagh Loch Loop. It's a really difficult trail. You see many people online, obviously, recommending to others that this is a great place to go hiking. I've gone and hiked there myself with my wife, Emer, and we did the loop there. And particularly as you come up going clockwise around that loop there, what is like 11 o'clock or 10 o'clock on the trail as you do that loop starting at 6 o'clock is a really challenging part of the trail. And it is tough. It's a steep cliff there. And I say to everyone else, so I think what really matters is that you're constantly acknowledging that, like, this is dangerous. This could be wrong. This might not be suitable. You've got to have your wits about you. And if you don't, you can get hurt. Yeah.
I just, sorry, I wanted to play that clip from the thing, but I'll save it to the end. Yeah, I kind of similar to the question. Is there a question that Pete asked? Have you seen any other really good implementations of AI from an app perspective yet? Not to do with the outdoors industry. Has there been anybody else that like really done it well?
Pete, any come to mind?
Not really. I mean, like the way that I'm using it in my day-to-day is just through kind of generative but it's funny that the last conversation there, it's about taking it with your own knowledge and using it to enhance your own kind of cop on. It's not asking it a question and doing it blindly and taking that for a gospel truth. So yeah, that's just the way I've been kind of using it in my day to day, and
that's going to be the tagline.
Yeah. Not the gospel truth. Have a bit of cop on. But yeah, the way it's been able to help me in the things that I thought I already knew so well, and just little questions like for example, like web development and that type of thing, where I'm like, if anybody's a web developer, they know Stack Overflow, for example, which is a website where kind of developers get on to talk about issues when it comes to like programming languages and things. As soon as I got access to ChatGPT, that website became like null. It's gone. It's now never used. I think I did go to it by kind of muscle memory once, but other than that, it's not used anymore. But like certain things that I've asked ChatGPT to explain to me have not been quite right, and I know that because of my own experience in development. And that has to be the same for everybody in terms of anything they're asking generative or kind of whatever AI to explain to them or to help them with. So yeah, but other than that, no real other kind of great examples of how it's been used.
I think like obviously ChatGPT is a very good example.
I was going to say like the only examples that I've seen so far where it's really good are the actual models themselves.
The main models themselves. Like I suspect that there's a lot out there that people are kind of less familiar with. Obviously, ChatGPT is an AI that people now directly interact with, but they forget that like security systems going back forevermore have implemented forms of not generative artificial intelligence, but artificial intelligence in the form of inferring what is seen in an image. So, so people will have been affected by artificial intelligence. Like when you walk into an airport, those cameras are packed with, models that are identifying issues, identifying people, identifying risks throughout airports. So it is, it has been all around us for a long time. As simple as even on your phone, when you anyone who's got iPhone, Android, or anything like that at all there, when you take images now, you're able to do things like identify text. So they are simple, very, very primitive machine learning kind of models and stuff like that. So there's a lot of examples out there that I think people would be kind of less familiar or maybe would not think of AI as much. But definitely haven't seen any in kind of specifically in the outdoors. Definitely interested to see if anybody in the comments has. But it surely is coming, and I do think, as you said, from a risk perspective, it is all about just warning people and telling people the reality of it.
Yeah. Look, it's like you could like if you hand somebody a paper map and someone goes off and gets lost and then they come back and say, well, hang on a second, you gave me the map and I took the directions that you said. Well, like, did you? Like, how do we know that? So the onus here, you're absolutely right, always will have to be on number one. But I guess like this is it's untouched land. Like we're going into like unfamiliar ground here now, where we're providing huge amounts of data to people at a whim for the benefit. It's for to inform them and to give them the best information possible before they go out there. But at the same time, there is like that kind of caution about like, oh, hang on a second, can we go back? Once we flick the switch, can we actually turn back and stop that from happening? And obviously you want to make sure that they are getting the right information. And that's where, I suppose, where the responsibility does lie on us, is that we have to test this like a huge amount. Like before any of this like sees the light of day, we're going to have to test it. And we haven't actually said anything about what we're actually going to be doing. And I don't think we should, unless you want to. But we are looking at ways that we can integrate AI into the HiiKER platform for the purpose of information and preparedness.
Yeah, and like I think, as I said, anything that we're doing obviously will be labeled with the relevant warnings of that. You have to take this with a pinch of salt, and we will certainly be baking cautiousness into what we are doing to make sure that generally it's erring on the side of caution. And that, again, it could be some of the things that, in fact, it is some of the things that people find frustrating in models, because the models are inherently cautious, and that they are optimized to give the least wrong answer rather than the most right answer, if you get me. And again, you can see why do companies do that, because they want to make them as safe as possible, and they don't want to be building models that are taking a lot of risks in terms of kind of giving answers. So I think you're certainly likely to see, in any form that this comes in HiiKER, and happy to hear people's ideas as well, is we're going to be baking in a high degree of cautiousness into these models and into the way that we interact with these models.
Yeah. Well, one thing that we're definitely not going to be doing is what Michael Scott actually experienced when he was following his GPS system way back when. We'll just give you a little highlight of what that was like.
This is the Elmhurst Country Club on the side of the lake on the southeast side.
I really don't get it. I thought this would work. Threw everything I had at that guy, nothing.
That's how it goes sometimes, you know. You lose everything, and everything falls apart, and eventually you die. And
make a right.
Maybe it's a shortcut, Dwight. It said go to the right.
It can't mean that. There's a lake there. I think it knows where it is going. The machine knows.
I love that quote. The machine knows.
The machine knows.
Exit the window.
Oh, make a U-turn.
You know what we have to do within the app? We need to license that, and like in advance of anybody using the AI within HiiKER, they have to watch this video before. The machine knows.
Yeah. Look, great chat. It's going to be something I think we're going to be talking about a lot more. And especially as we start to like visualize things and how things actually integrate into our platform, and hopefully we do get to see some other examples of how people have implemented it as well in other applications. And yeah, I think it's something that will cause debate. It definitely will cause debate, because there are, like, you know, I am very much a skeptic when it comes to AI, 100%, and you can probably tell that by a lot of the notes that I brought up. But I also do see the massive benefits that it can bring, particularly in the in our space, and how it can help people to bridge that gap of like, I'm going there for where do I go? Where do I start? How do I read a map? You go on.
That's exactly it. I mean, just going back to the original kind of Reddit person, and I don't want to tarnish all Reddit people, but that idea of like, oh, why would you need AI when you're out in the woods? It's not about that. It's not about putting HiiKER app in your face, and that's not what we're about anyway. We're about preparing for that situation and getting you as much information to be happy in that situation, and get you to be the happiest in whatever situation you want to be in. So yeah, if people do have that attitude of like, ugh, AI, and I think they need to kind of educate themselves a bit.
It's funny in that the purpose of AI, you know, in many ways will be that when you go to the hills, you do not need AI.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
It's helping you to infer the information, read the right documents, present the right information at the right time. So when you go there, you are purely disconnected, and you are not thinking it all there, and you are enjoying yourself. So
yeah. Well, look, I think, as I said, like, it's going to cause a lot more debate, maybe amongst us, but also I'm sure people that are listening or watching this will also have their own opinions about it as well. But it's something that I'm definitely keenly interested in seeing how it evolves, both for us and for the wider hiking community as well. So if you're interested in following along that conversation, join in. We have a Facebook group and community. It's just HiiKER, the Hiking Maps app. Just search that on Facebook. If you're watching this, you probably are already part of the group as well. Join in the conversation. We'll be putting in questions, seeing what people think about it, maybe showing you some early iterations of what it looks like as well in the platform. And yeah, let us know what you think. Lads, thanks as always. Until next time. Bye.
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 Cheers.